Your host Blaine Putvay, and I'm joined up by my co-host Matt Smith.
Good evening.
And we have two special guests on today from the Hockey Writers San Jose Sharks beat. Andrew Stille.
Yep. Hello. Welcome to the Habs Unfiltered podcast. Why am I the one introducing this? I felt the need to take over.
You can done. I'm out.
Well, we found Trent's replacement.
Done deal. He wears pants too, so that's a plus.
That's the real upside here.
Yeah. And our other guest, Alex Hutton, also of the Hockey Writers San Jose Sharks beat. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. Excited to talk all about the draft and other various things.
Yeah, so we brought you on because clearly with the draft coming up, San Jose Sharks are picking fourth, which is immediately before the Canadiens. We had a show with Mark Scheig, who covers the Columbus Blue Jackets, because they pick three. And we're going to follow on with that series with the two of you. And we'll talk about the Sharks. And of course, it all ties into the Canadiens.
Oh, of course.
Everything does.
Yeah.
Center of the hockey universe, right?
No, that's Toronto.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure the Dubas news will overshadow.
Yeah. So for our listeners, as we record, it is the 19th of May and it's about 9 p.m. Atlantic time. And Dubas decided he was going to quit / Shanahan fire him. So
yeah,
after all those years of success, he's gone.
Yeah, that's rough. It's real rough.
What hurts more is that whoever they hire is probably going to do better. And as Canadiens fans would know, that seeing Toronto succeed is bad.
I was going to say, I'm sure you guys were rolling over into your graves when they advanced to the second round this year.
Actually, we were laughing our holes off thinking this is the first time since my second kid's entire life has been Toronto not winning. And she felt bad that she was alive to see it. You raise them right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll just kick this off. And I want to start first with the Sharks being at 3 and the option of moving up. Andrew, you wrote an article for the Hockey Writers on exactly that. So why don't you break it down a little bit for us? Would the Sharks want to do that, and what would it cost them?
So I have been thinking about this pretty much since we secured fourth overall. Just the idea that with the setup that they have going right now, with the pieces that they have, especially considering, Bedard is guaranteed to go first overall. I'd be dumbfounded if that guy doesn't go first overall. And Fantilli and Karlsson and, Michkov, I know there's been a little discourse on where he's going, but considering that those players all will fall within a relatively similar range of like ceiling and skill and just all that stuff, I wrote that I don't think it's a good idea for the Sharks to trade up, just because, if you say move up to where Columbus is, you're probably having to give up pieces that we need to retool to start moving back towards the playoffs, unless you can get them to take like Couture, but I don't know if that's realistic. But yeah, so we're having to give up too much for a little bit of reward, I guess. You're getting something good, but is it really worth moving up just one spot for that? And I really don't see it.
Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's realistic either. I don't think they can get any higher than third. I don't see a way where they could work their way up to second. I think third is the only option, and I think they would just have to give up too much to move up that one spot. I think. Well, I do want them to use that fourth pick and just get one of those top prospects. I also think that the back end of the draft and future drafts are going to be really important as well. Holding on to all those assets and not giving them up to move up one spot. I don't think it seems like a realistic option to me.
Matt, you had a question?
So they've got 2 first-round picks, one being their own, the other being from the Devils. What is kind of San Jose's biggest need at the draft?
So I think it really depends on honestly, it kind of depends on what aspect you want to look at, given, the time of day you're looking at it. The Sharks have kind of put themselves in a position where we're struggling a little bit. And that comes with playoff success, right? You start losing those prospects. But I feel like we're starting to kind of get a hold of our forward depth a little bit. We're starting to draft well. And we've gotten some late round hits as well for forward specifically, but defensively we're struggling a little bit. And now that Benjamin Gaudreau is going back into the draft, we kind of lost one of our best, or maybe not best, but one of our most highest touted prospects for goaltending. So I could see us taking a swing at a defenseman. I could see us trading down with that pick even, or maybe trying to get a bad contract or two to move up. But with the 4th overall pick, I don't know. If they wanted to move up, last year was probably the year to move up. But this year, I don't know.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see two needs for the team right now. Number one is a forward who's just like phenomenally skilled on the puck. Like, I think they just need that guy. I mean, they lost a lot of overtime and shootout games this year, and I think a lot of that comes down to just having some guy you can just put the puck on his stick and boom, he goes to work, gets the net, make dekes 7 times, puts it in. I think a guy like that, I think that's what they can look for, like particularly with that 4th overall pick. And then, like Andrew said, defenseman is hugely important. Just so many times this year, one of the most infuriating things for me to watch during Sharks games was just how many times they left the goalies hung out to dry because just some kind of defensive breakdown and the line wouldn't hold, slip up something wide open. It's so bad. It was very rough. So if they can use this draft to really start building up the defensive core, that would be huge.
So Alex, you kind of hinted at a player that can kind of be that finisher. Could that person be Matvei Michkov?
That is exactly what I was thinking of. Yes, I mean, I do think, like, for my personal preference, yes, I do think that is who I would want the Sharks to take with that 4th overall pick if he's still available. Obviously, there's certain question marks around his contract situation and how soon he can get to the NHL, and obviously he's going through just a brutal situation in his personal life right now, and obviously thoughts out to him. I mean, but I think he absolutely has the skill to be one of those guys who can be the centerpiece. I think the Sharks have a lot of promising young players, but like they're more guys who are like, steady, more mid-tier forwards, whereas Michkov, I think, can be that guy at the top who really can change the trajectory of a franchise.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially like if you paired him alongside of Eklund, I think that could be just phenomenal to watch. And I honestly don't think the Sharks will be in a position where waiting the few extra years to get him is going to make that big of a difference. I don't think we'll be good enough to compete between then. And if we are, I mean, that's just, additional bonus, but yeah.
Yeah, and on that, because it's the rumor is it's going to take about 3 years, might take 4 even, depending on how much pressure St. Petersburg puts on him to sign another contract. But is Greer willing to wait that long?
Man, I don't know. I think
he should be.
Yeah, I agree. But honestly, it's a question of, has he learned from what happened with the last general manager and the way that we handled our prospects and things like that? Does he understand that, maybe this team needs to take a step back before we can take a step forward? And it seemed like he kind of, especially with trading Meier, it seemed like he understood that, or at least that he's starting to understand where the last management group went wrong. But I think we'll have to see. I hope that he's willing to wait.
Well, now it's making the most of that trade. You trade a player away like Meier, who's a very, very good player on any team in the league. It's going to be bringing that asset back that's going to replace him long term.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is going to be about Erik Karlsson.
Oh yeah, love
could
that
guy. Could that be a guy that we could see dangled for some future pieces and maybe to maybe fast track this retool or rebuild in San Jose? He had an amazing season. Don't get me wrong. He had an amazing season.
Yeah, but, I mean, and I think the fact that he had such an amazing season, I think it probably increases value like significantly from where it was even just a year ago. So, I mean, I think if there was ever a time to at least look into it, I think now is it. I mean, I struggle to figure out, like, how much of a market is there going to be given his contract? Like, what people are going to want to take that on? What would they have to attach to it? What could they get back? What teams would be the most interested? Like, that's the part I'm still trying to figure out from a Sharks perspective, given where his value is right now and given where the direction of the team is headed, and how old he might be by the time they're ready to contend again. I think they have to, at the very least, make some calls, explore around, figure out if it's possible to move him.
Do you think he starts the season with the team?
Oh man, you have to get back to me on that one. I gotta.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a tough one right there. I could see him being traded this offseason. I could absolutely see it taking longer than that, just because of how many things you need to look at and trying to facilitate a deal there. But
now on Karlsson, he's 32 already. He's got 5 more years. He'll be 37 by the time this contract's up, and it's $11.5 million a year on this deal. How much of that contract is Greer willing to eat to make a deal?
Ooh,
yeah, that is the other aspect, the salary retention. I mean, there's to just go back to hockey writers there have been plenty of articles sort of trying to break down that exact thing, and that's another element of it that I'm still trying to figure out. Where I just need to do more clicking around on Cap Friendly and try to figure out exactly what the situation would be.
Oh yeah, Cap Friendly is a man's best friend trying to figure out a Karlsson trade. That's for sure. It's something I've done quite a bit, and I would hope that Greer would be willing to eat a little bit of the salary. But honestly, I think, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't really know that it is. I think this is probably the first year since Karlsson signed that deal that he's been worth the entire thing. I think without a doubt, he was worth the $11.5 million this year. The question is, will that keep up? And considering how bad this Sharks team was, it's possible that you put him on a good team and he's playing just as well. But I think people won't be willing to take that chance. And so you're going to have to at least retain a little bit.
I'm kind of thinking that the time is really now to deal. I mean, this, as you guys are both saying, this is his worth is at the highest it's going to be. And perhaps at this point of that $11.5 million contract, Greer isn't going to have to eat as much, because he can be like, look what our player just did. He had a 100+ point season. Why should I have to eat half of it? Or why should I have to eat this, upper percentage of it to facilitate a trade when he did this on, quote unquote, a shitty San Jose Sharks team?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, hey, you guys want him? We'll send him to the Habs. We'll send him your way. That's what I thought. I figured.
No, the guy's almost as old as me, so I doubt the team wants him. Now back to Meier. That trade by Greer was one of the biggest trades the NHL has seen in quite some time, and by big I mean the number of players and picks all packaged up together. It was a ridiculous amount of assets going back and forth. I think there was about a day where people were a little confused about who got what when.
Oh yeah.
There was a lot. Now you got Shakir Mukhamadullin for the defense. He's going to be a decent player for you in the next few years. But the remainder of that package, other than the first round pick this year, was there anything really of value in there that will impact the Sharks?
I don't know. It's a lot of it's too early to say. Specifically, I think that there's a very good chance that next year we have another first from them, because I could see them making a run to the conference finals with how well they played this year. So I could see that being another first for us. And my knowledge of the depth of drafts kind of drops off after this year. I don't know if it's going to be as good. So maybe it's not, what you would want compared to this year, at least. But I go back and forth on that deal. Sometimes I think that we did a really good job. Sometimes I think, one more, at least like B+ prospect you throw in there would have been really nice. But we weren't going to get Holtz or Mercer. I know that, but I mean, like that, come on, like you got to admit that would have been pretty nice.
A man can dream.
Oh yeah.
Especially when you're giving up someone that as good as Timo. Like, I live in Halifax. That's where I'm based out of. Mm-hmm. So we know Meier very well here, and we hold him in very high esteem. So seeing what he's doing for New Jersey now, I know is going to hurt San Jose fans in the short term.
Oh yeah, it already hurts watching him do that over there. I miss him already.
You know, I was a big fan of his as well. So much fun to watch, and it was just an unfortunate situation where they had this cap crunch and this sort of need to move some things around, and he just kind of ended up being the odd man out given where his contract was at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt?
Do you believe that if they don't pick Michkov, Michkov is obviously your guys' pick. With guys like Bordeleau in their system, they've got Bysted, etc. So they've already got two guys that can play center. Do you think that possibly they might look at a guy like Will Smith or Karlsson?
I think so. I think that there's a good chance. I would like Leo Karlsson if we're not going to get Michkov, just because I've been high on him for a long time. I loved, watching highlights of the guy. He's phenomenal. But Will Smith, I live in the USHL region, so I've got to see some of the NTDP stuff. And that guy he's nuts. Like he's phenomenal. I think realistically, although we want a winger, I don't think you can go wrong with the other two. And I think that specifically Will Smith you could probably see on a wing. And I know it's not like his primary position, but I think he could play that position just as well.
Right.
And I think when you have a top 5 pick or a top 4 pick, I don't think you draft for fit. I just think you try to get the best available player, the most skilled guy you possibly can. Karlsson, I think, is also phenomenal. I also think I was talking about earlier, changing the trajectory of a franchise. I think Karlsson is also skilled enough to be that guy. Will Smith, I see, is more of just like a steady kind of rock guy, more like an anchor type. But I still think he's great, and he's a Boston College guy where went to Boston University. So there's some sort of interest there about knowing the region and the style of hockey and things like that. So I think when you're at that position, you take the best available player, whoever that ends up being.
Now, let's just say that Columbus picks Michkov. Do you believe that there's an option or possibility that Greer would actually trade back to pick up some more assets? For instance, the Canadiens desperately want a specific player who might be at 4, and they're willing to give up an asset. Would San Jose even think about that?
Or maybe like Detroit, who has, I think they have like pick 9 and then another pick in the
hell with Detroit. Screw them.
Just saying. I'm giving you options.
I think it's realistic to assume he would trade back like a spot or two. I don't know if he would necessarily be willing to go all the way back to 9. I know that it's tough. I would hope, as a Sharks fan, right, that we either just take a player that we want, or we only trade back like a spot or two. Right. Just because, that top 5, top 6 in the draft is going to be so amazing that I don't want to know what future we'll be living in without a player from that range. So I could see him doing it, but I wouldn't bet against him just taking someone.
I think if the right offer comes along, you at least have to listen. But I think I agree with Andrew in that in a year where this particular top 5 seems so strong, and you fall in that top 5, you want to take advantage of that. And when there seems like there's these 5 really good players, and by the time your pick rolls around, you're guaranteed that at least 2 of them are still going to be available. I think you have to take I would prefer that they take that shot and take a chance on one of those guys being someone who can really start guiding this franchise back to contention.
Matt?
So you kind of made a comment about Logan Couture and his contract. He's an older player, but he's still a guy that's probably going to give you, when he's healthy, and which he usually is, 60 plus points.
Yeah.
Right. And he, wears the C. He's well respected, etc. My question is a guy that maybe you guys would want to move on from in his contract, which would be Marc-Edouard Vlasic.
I mean, it feels like kind of a pipe dream to think that there will be a team who wants to take that. But if I'm Greer, I don't know what his window is as far as how long he thinks it'll take this team to compete. But if that window is within that contract, I'd be picking up the phone for sure.
Right. Would that be something that you'd be okay with Greer trading that trading maybe an asset to get rid of that contract?
I think it depends on the asset.
To get that cap flexibility.
Yeah. I think it depends on what's going back the other way. Like if it is, I would not assume that it would be like an Eklund or the 4th overall pick necessary, unless we're just moving a small amount. But if it's one of our other players, I don't know. I kind of like Gannon LaRoque. I was gonna say maybe like him or like Ethan Cardwell, someone in there. I could see that being a possibility. But I'm of the belief that they should maybe just eat it because we're not good enough right now that it really matters. So,
well, bringing back another San Jose Sharks player, Toronto traded a 1st-round pick just to move Patrick Marleau.
Oh yeah, they did do that.
All right, so, and that was a bigger contract. So, or that was a smaller contract. That was a smaller contract than Vlasic. So
yeah. I forgot he was a Carolina Hurricane for like all of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I love those things like when like pieces get moved or like someone grabs a guy just like to store and you get these players who technically played for the Hurricanes or technically played for
Oh yeah, Patrick Kane was an Arizona Coyote for a little bit there. That's what I like to fall back on.
The amount, like the starting lineup you could make out of players who technically played for the Coyotes.
Oh, it's insane.
So dominant.
Datsuk, Pronger.
Dynasty.
Voracek, yeah.
Unreal. And hey, the Canadiens also picked up a Nick Bonino.
Oh yeah,
Habs legend.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, these little these 3-way trades and people eating cap. It just makes for fun little trivia pieces, really. Now, with kind of building on what Matt was talking about with Vlasic, the Habs GM really does like to take on those contracts. Like he did that with Monahan this past year, got him a 1st. Now, and you mentioned depending on the asset for Vlasic to go. Now, if the Canadiens somehow, for whatever reason, took on that deal, would it be worth the cost for San Jose to give up someone like, say, a Philip Bystead or the New Jersey pick this year?
Alex, what do you think? I'm passing this one off to you. I'll let you captain this question.
It's pretty loaded because it is it is a good question.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because it's not just a 1-year deal like Monahan. This is a 4-year commitment.
Jeez.
Right. Oh. Yeah. No, I mean, I think Bystead I would rather hold on to just because he's a prospect and he's still developing and you want to, I think, see what he can contribute to your team. A pick I'd be more willing to attach something just because it's a little bit more nebulous and there's a certain value attached to just having control over selecting somebody. But with the Vlasic thing, I'm kind of the opinion that there are just like more important things for the team and the front office to be focusing on right now, both for cap purposes, for development of the current roster, for selecting guys and building up and trying to, like move Karlsson and clarify the goalie picture and things like that. So I just think that moving Vlasic, it could be worth exploring, but they should have bigger fish to fry right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we have a lot of things that we could be looking at that should have priority over trying to do something with, Vlasic's deal. But that being said, just out of curiosity, because I'm not as up to date on the Canadiens prospect pool as I'm sure you two are. What are you guys looking at with that pick right now at 5?
Honestly, for myself, it's going to be the best player available out of whoever's left out of those top 5 players. If it happens to be Will Smith, you take Smith. If it happens that you can get Karlsson, you take him. If Michkov falls down because the other teams are looking at him and saying that the Russian factor's there and there's too much of a risk, I say you take that risk. You're in a rebuild. It's the Montreal Canadiens are also in with a new general manager. this could be an absolute home run. And when I look at a guy like Matvei Michkov, he's likely a first round pick in almost every other draft.
Oh yeah.
Right. But if you take out that Russian factor, and that's the thing, you take out that Russian factor, he's right there with Bedard.
Yeah, and with the Canadiens head of amateur scouting being Russian himself and Nick Bobrov, he's capable of going in and out of Russia on his own passport. Not that he has, and not that he hasn't seen this player play, but that is a factor. Not seeing him live is a real factor in whether or not they pick him. And there's quite a bit of talk about the Canadiens not really being sold on him and looking elsewhere. Someone like a Ryan Leonard, for instance, if Will Smith is not available, or Leo Karlsson, leaning towards a Ryan Leonard instead, because for whatever reason they like these players, or they feel that they're more likely to arrive or remain in North America. There's even outside chatter on a defenseman like Reinbacher. Not that I believe that he'll go at 5, but some people do. I like Michkov because of the skill level, but I do understand the caution, the why anyone would be wary on picking him. So I have no problem if they go Will Smith or Ryan Leonard, but for me, it's really about adding an offensive piece up front. The Canadiens really need that. They also need a lot of help on the right side of the defense, especially with puck movers. So I don't think this is the draft for that, but hey, you never know. Weirder things have happened.
For myself, it's not time to make the safe pick, to make the safe play. You've got 5th overall. You just had first. You got Slavkovsky. He's gonna take some time to develop. He's kind of like he's a kid in a man's body right now. He still needs to learn how to use his size to his advantage, and I think that'll come in time. But the thing that kind of gets to me is the people that continuously say, well, Michkov's 3 years out. Michkov's 3 years out. Other than Bedard and Fantilli, other prospects are still going to be 2-3 years out anyway. So you're getting a player that's going to go and playing at the at the KHL level. He's going to be playing with one of the top teams, and as long as they don't utilize him the way that they did this year, where they actually loaned him to Sochi's to give him more playing time, and he has that kind of swagger to his game that he had when he went there, he's worth the wait for 3 years, right?
Yeah.
The only problem that I see though with picking a player like that, or picking a player that can't come into North America per se, is he's not developing with your young core. But I think that he's a good enough player. Wait for him. You plug him into that core, put him on a power play with Caulfield, and you have 2 guys that can shoot the puck the way that they can. And all of a sudden, the Canadiens' power play is once again a strength like it used to be.
That's lethal.
Right?
I don't even that. I mean, just thinking about that gives me chills, man. That's terrifying to think about.
Yeah, and I mean, just to sort of bring it back to the Sharks, we're talking about like being 2 to 3 years out. Given the place the Sharks are in, they're in a rebuild right now. They don't need to be rushing anything. They can afford to let a guy develop in Europe, give a guy some time in the AHL, whatever it might be. They can very much afford to let someone take their time. They're not drafting to contend for the playoffs next season. They're still 2-3 years out from that. So they can absolutely be very patient with the development of whoever it is they end up picking.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think honestly, like when I think about the teams ahead of our 2 picks, obviously the Blackhawks are going to take Bedard. That's, more like pretty much done. But I think that the Ducks and the Blue Jackets have a little bit more pressure on them to start shifting towards competing within the next few years, especially the Ducks. I mean, everyone thought they were going to be better than they were this year. They will not I'm assuming at least they probably won't take the risk of a Michkov just because they don't know, with that time frame, they probably want to get better a little bit earlier. So I think it's entirely realistic that, one of our two teams ends up being the one that takes him just because of that pressure.
Right.
Now, you guys were talking about Gaudreau, the goalie going back into the draft, and the Canadiens, let's be honest, their goaltending pipeline is in need of some support. I know that there's some decent names in there, but they're young, they're unproven. We're not sure what they are, and the Canadiens will be looking to draft some goaltenders. Now, Gaudreau, he's 20 years old. He's a little bit more developed. What did you guys see from him while he was a prospect? Alex, I'll start with you.
I mean, my knowledge of him isn't the strongest. I will just to talk about Sharks goalie prospects in general. The guy I've really liked the most so far is Makiniemi. Seeing him, made it up for 2 NHL games, played pretty well in the AHL too. So he's the guy I'm looking for as their goalie prospect, who I think can most make an impact next season.
Do you think he'll jump into the league next year and take Reimer's spot?
I think it's possible. Yeah, I think he should at least training camp give him a chance to compete for an NHL for a roster spot and see what he's capable of.
Yes, Kakinen's got one more year left on his deal, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew, what did you see anything from him that made you really disappointed that he left, or are you kind of meh?
I didn't have too strong of feelings one way or the other. When we drafted him originally, I was excited about it. But and obviously this is, nothing against his game, but just watching him the past 2 years, I didn't see the growth I would have hoped for. Like, it kind of felt not necessarily like stagnation, but there weren't that big jumps like I would have thought. And I'm guessing the Sharks weren't wanting to give him a higher role. So I kind of understand why he ended up going back into the draft. I think it makes sense for both teams, but I've, been, like Alex said, Makiniemi, I'm very excited for. I think Strauss-Mann has a really good chance of getting some ice time. So I don't know that it's like the end of the world, but considering how rocky the Sharks can be with their goaltending, I think the more the merrier. So yeah, mixed feelings.
Matt, anything on the goaltending?
If they don't bring up one of their young guys, so they're going to go out and grab a UFA maybe, just to kind of smooth things out. It wasn't a strength this year.
No,
yeah, I mean, the way they're doing it, where they just sort of kind of these last few years, kind of just floated around between goalies.
Right.
Martin Jones was really steady for a few years, and then sort of started to hit some rough patches towards the end of his time with the Sharks. And then ever since then, it's just been kind of bouncing from one guy to the next and not really having a steady presence in the net. And I think they need to find someone who's going to be there for several seasons. So I mean, if they were going to sign a free agent, I'd want it to be to a longer term deal, and someone they're going to say, hey, you're the guy for the next however many seasons, because the way they're doing it right now of just kind of throwing different people out there, it's not the way to go for them to get back to contention. So it's gonna, whether it's Makiniemi or one of the other prospects or that long-term free agent, either way, it's got to be someone who they can trust for several seasons.
Evgeny Nabokov.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
Strap the pads. He's their goaltending coach still, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think
strap the pads on him. Are you good to go?
Yeah. I mean, he was good enough for us back then. I'm sure he can do it now.
Exactly.
When he left, like that 1 year in free agency, that was very disappointing. So maybe we bring it back full circle. I would take that.
Now, Reimer is staying with the goaltending. Reimer is a UFA. He's free as can be. Does his position, the political position he took, will that have any effect whatsoever on the decision to keep him or let him walk? Or were they already deciding to let him walk anyway?
I never got the feeling that they were going to keep him around long term anyway. I kind of felt like he was more of the, hey, let's stall with him until our younger guys are ready to go type of goaltender, like that transitional piece. I do think that, the political side of things will definitely, I don't think it'll make as big of an impact as most people would maybe like it to, or not like it to, whichever side, but I don't think it'll be a deciding factor, but I could definitely see it turning the Sharks away. I mean, you think about what happened with Evander Kane. There was a lot that was going on there that eventually they were like, okay, we're gonna just terminate that. We'll just get it off our hands. So I could see it being a possibility.
I was trying to stay away from Evander Kane. I know that's a sore spot for San Jose.
Oh yeah. That's it's something that a lot of Sharks fans talk about a lot still.
But we'll switch to something a little more fun or less fun, depending on what side you fall on with this. A regional rival in the Arizona Coyotes. What did you guys make of their recent social media post saying, here is our new arena plan? This is what we got. We got a new arena. And you click it, it's a Rickroll. What did you think of that being done, and what do you think the response is likely to be from some of their real hardcore fans? Alex, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not the first time that their social media is kind of like shit posted about this. So it's turning into a pattern. It's really just strange. Like, I feel like they wouldn't be doing this if they didn't think they were staying in Arizona. Like, that's kind of the vibe I get out of that. Like, I feel like it's they're kind of making a joke out of it, they feel okay about it. But I mean, then there have been new developments with this site in Mesa apparently. So that'll be interesting to track. I don't know. It's strange. If I were a fan of the team, I'd be very like kind of confused by what's going on here, and what are you doing with me? I mean, like I'm from Oakland, and we're going through our own relocation drama right now, which is like the bottom. I'm not going to get into a whole thing about here because it would take way too long, but the bottom line is the way the A's are handling this, like, this is not how relocation should work, period, full stop. They are doing it wrong. And so like then they're stringing everybody along, and so it's just never fun for the fans. And I sympathize with all Coyotes fans right now.
For our non-baseball
like
fans.
Living,
for the non-baseball fans, I don't know, the Oakland A's or the Arizona Coyotes of baseball right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
They are awful.
And the way the two teams are handling it, it's kind of like breaking up but living with your ex.
Yeah, it is. That's a really good way to put it. That's kind of exactly what it feels like.
It's messed up. It's really messed up. Especially, I know it's a hockey podcast, but my God, the way they're screwing Oakland is just it's next level.
Yep,
it's bad. It's not good.
Well, anyway, bring it back to hockey, Matt, before we start swearing and stuff.
Anybody on your non-draft, like, do not draft list, like if they were to move up, like if they were to take, like if they swung for the fences or somebody moved, like something happened, who's on do not pick for you?
That's tough. Honestly, with how good this draft is, it almost feels like I wouldn't. Okay, so realistically, right? If you don't take, so let's just assume that Bedard, Fantilli are locks at 1 and 2. If you don't take one of Karlsson, Smith, Michkov, and then
there's something wrong.
Yeah, like what are you doing? Like, these guys are literally just sitting there. There's 3 of them that you could take, right, but you're gonna go for someone that was like ranked like 10, 15. Like what? Just trade down at that point, and don't do that either. That's also a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same way. I think it would be very strange to not draft one of those 3 guys, but I don't think there's like a specific player where if they traded down and then took someone where it's like it would be like a no for me.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty much everything we were curious about. I mean, our listeners don't probably see a lot of the Sharks. I mean, it's a West Coast team. A lot of our listeners are East Coast, Europe. The Australians who follow us have probably watched a few of the games, but it's not something that a lot of people really follow. So I really appreciate the two of you coming on and giving us a little bit of insight on what's going on with the Sharks and some of the plans that may be ahead for them, because they do impact the Canadiens this summer. Now, normally on our show, we have just before signing off, a moment for any final thoughts. So, Alex, as you're one of our guests, we're going to start with you. Do you have any final thoughts?
I guess just since this is a drafting episode, I'm just like really excited to see how all these different prospects translate to the NHL. I mean, I think that's one of the best parts of the draft is, finding out what team a certain player is going to go to, and then looking forward to seeing them in that uniform and seeing how they can contribute. And in a year with so many like top prospects and such an exciting top five, I think that just gets cranked up to 100. So I'm just very excited to see the future of the NHL play out in starting in about 5 weeks at this point from Nashville. So I'm looking forward to it.
Now, where could my listeners find you and your work?
Yeah, I write for the San Jose Sharks at thehockeywriters.com. My Twitter is AlexHutton35. I tweet about mostly about sports, from hockey, baseball, basketball, all kinds of stuff. So you can be sure to follow me there, AlexHutton35.
Andrew, any final thoughts?
So alongside just a heartfelt thank you for inviting me and Alex on, this has been a lot of fun. I'd also like to extend a heartfelt thank you to the Montreal Canadiens organization for eliminating our biggest rival in the Vegas Golden Knights in the playoffs a few years ago. I have never been a bigger Habs fan than I was in that moment. I have a Canada hat that's sitting over here. It was like the closest thing I had. I was cheering. That was one of the best times to watch the Canadiens, I think. So thank you for doing that. And we'll hope Vegas gets eliminated sometime soon. Sorry, Vegas fans.
If I can just jump in here for a second, I mentioned earlier I have a college friend who's a huge Canadiens fan, and for his birthday that year, I found like a signed Arturi Lehkonen card, and I bought it for him. And then of course Lehkonen goes on to score the winning goal in that series. So I just like went to him like, dude, that card, dude, that just went up in value a lot, man. So,
especially after he scored the winning goal for the Stanley Cup the following year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, Andrew, where could our listeners find you?
Yeah, so obviously I'm a Sharks writer for the Hockey Writers, and I'm also on Twitter at Andrew_Stille. I do a lot of random tweeting whenever I feel like it over there. I also tweet about the Blackhawks because I am sometime soon. It's in the works to start a Blackhawks podcast, but that'll be something that'll take a little bit to get going. But for Shark stuff and all that, yeah, you'll find me over on my Twitter.
Matt, final thoughts.
I just want to thank both of you for coming on. You're more than welcome back anytime. Anytime we need to reach out and talk to some guys that know a little bit about the West Coast when, Blain and I are both in bed, and we might miss the game. And from a show standpoint, on our last show, we had a lot of laughs about prospect Hampton Slekneski, just based on his name. And I had a lot of people tweet me and send me DMs and everything asking me if he was a real person. And yes, he's a real person. He's a real goalie. So go out and check him out. He's my wild card for the Canadiens to pick with a late round pick. And
Yeah, that was
and it's Sluck, not with a T. It's with a K.
Yeah. The mispronunciation is what made it much better.
Yeah. But he is a real
So
player.
much
He's a real person. So yeah, go check him out.
So for me, I just want to echo what Matt said. I want to thank you both for coming on the show. We really appreciate your point of view. I love hearing from other organizations, and the more that we can get people from the Hockey Writers out there to be seen and get more followers, the better. Because I work there too, I may as well. So I want to really, really thank you both for coming on. And for my listeners, I want to thank you guys all for listening. keep shit posting Matt for the Slutnusky stuff. It is a lot of fun. Keep sending those emails in. We really appreciate your input, and everything you provide to us. We've been getting DMs about Cole Caulfield lately, and we're going to do a show specifically on that. So any emails or comments you've made, we're going to use those. And remember, if you guys are talking